What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of First Blood. Today I'm joined by my amazing co-host Holdshift. You guys know him, and we're gathered by an absolute GOAT in the Call of Duty scene, someone who's been around a while and won lots of times. Benjamin Bance, how you doing, buddy?
It's good. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, bro. Pleasure having you, and happy you could hop on and kind of get your take on a few things, Call of Duty and whatnot. So I'm excited to kind of get right into it. But I just want to start out by asking you, how you feeling about Call of Duty Vanguard? How you feeling about the grind so far? We're at one major end. We've been, obviously seeing a lot of teams improve, and I feel like at this point in the year, you kind of get to see like an iron out in the standings as far as like who the top dogs are. You get to see, kind of start seeing who the teams are in the bottom, and you start seeing a lot of changes and kind of seeing that cycle going. So how you feeling about that? How you feeling with your team and the progression you guys have made?
Stressful. Yeah, very stressful, I'd say. Feel like you can't compare this game to any other game. Like, it's literally impossible to compare it. I feel like when I play it, I can't give like my team a guarantee like 100% on something. That's probably the most frustrating thing. Because I feel like I'm quite a calculated person. So when I'm playing, whenever I say something, I'm saying it with like 95% confidence. I'm like, there's a 95% chance they're here. Don't quote me on it. That's probably like the hardest thing for me is like adjusting to that. Because there's times where I'm like, yo, we flipped, and we just haven't flipped.
Not the case.
Yeah,
No, definitely. I'll go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, coordinating off of the spawn, team spawns in the first place is obviously, I'm sure, a wild mystery. But when it comes to your team in particular, what is it like kind of communicating with all the other pieces? Because I feel like a lot of the maps that we see, it's kind of like they play in almost polar opposites, where you've got Bacage, where it's just like, hold on for dear life, and then you got maps like Gavudu and Berlin that are so wide open it feels like you can actually get a lay of the land. So like, is there more of a trust factor going in with the other three now that there's been some really consistent synergy with you guys over the course of the last year and a half, or is it still largely on your shoulders to kind of run the in-game comms?
Nah, I mean, to be fair, they all like know what they're doing. They know like most of it. I just probably say reminders. I'll probably just give like little bits here and there, like split-second decisions. Like if I see they're playing a certain way, I'll quickly just make a split-second call. Yo, we're doing this quick. Just run. But they all know what they're doing. Like they've been playing for years.
Right.
There's been times where like Toby will make a call or Cam will make a call and it will work out. Like Toby, he doesn't really say much, but he will always say something at 5-5. And I think every time he's made a call at 5-5, we've won it. He's done it so many times. But yeah, everyone says their piece.
Baller.
Definitely. Well, that kind of leads me into, you kind of hinted at it a little bit, but like as far as like just adjusting, I know I praise you guys a ton. I'm big on like teamwork. You know me, when I played, I'm big on like fundamentals and figuring out Call of Duty as like a group. As far as like your team goes, have you seen like, I know we'll kind of get into it with your guys' Major 1 performance and everything. We saw you guys struggle on hardpoint. As far as like being structurally sound, like a fundamental team working on the teamwork, is it a little bit harder in a game like Call of Duty Vanguard, like compared to Cold War, where it's like a lot faster pace, a lot more kills go down, and the kills really mean less? Like, because we've seen it plenty of times throughout Call of Duties where you 4-dead a team and you're guaranteed like 30 to 45 seconds of hill time because you played the rotation properly. In this game, you get 4-dead on Bocage, and it's like, okay, they're right there again. The kills could technically mean nothing. And it's like, from the outside looking in, like, I know we've seen Haggy and a bunch of other players say like some of the series are like coin flips in this game. So has it been an adjustment for your team? And I know, like I said, we can kind of touch on the respawn about your team, but kind of give me your insight on that.
Yeah, it's been quite weird, to be honest, because we got the saying now, it's kill before hill. It's just 9 times out of 10, they're already going to be on the hill again. So just get that kill before even worrying about the objective, especially on Bacage. Yeah, we had a lot of struggles, to be honest, in respawn, well, in hardpoint, because we tried playing too fundamental. And when you're playing too fundamental, you're playing it at a slower pace, because you're trying to be like methodical about how you're like pushing up the map. and I feel like that was hurting us because we were missing every single time, and we were allowing them to spawn up and probably like play 3 waves before. Obviously, we've even made like an official push, and that was hurting us a lot at the major.
So I kind of want to ask the question too at the major, because you guys kind of came in through qualifiers largely riding the Bacage pony when it came down to your hardpoint picks, but then you guys get to the major and it's like nobody let you play that. So it kind of forced you guys to open up your map pool in competitive play, right? Like you guys played a lot of Voodoo, a lot of Berlin. Were those things like this kill before hill mindset that you're talking about, and maybe kind of realizing that, oh, we're actually playing this maybe a little bit too reserved? Was that kind of like an in-your-face realization once you started to play maps like Voodoo and Berlin compared to Bacage, or is it something that you guys kind of were feeling out even before the major?
No, this was definitely all after the major. All this
Gotcha.
that we've been speaking about in hard playing, hardpoint. Yeah, I feel like going into the major, Bacage was definitely our best map. But then also Gavutu was up there. Like we were confident in Gavutu against anyone. Like that's why we picked it against Thieves, because I think we went on like some crazy like win streak and scrims on it. Like we were looking really good on it. But at heart, like as it was getting closer and closer to the major, we were like nitpicking so much, and to the point where like everyone was scared to make a play. Like there was a time on
Okay.
Reddit, yeah, there was a time on Reddit during the major. We played Berlin, I think it was against London. We had the rotation of P3, and we were all just crammed inside P3. And we all just looked so scared to do anything, and none of them were even near us. The hill hasn't even popped yet, and we're all hiding inside the hill. And like when you watch it back, you're just like, what are we thinking here? Like you could just tell everyone was scared to like push out, and we just had no information. That's probably like our biggest thing, was like getting information on where they're pushing,
Gotcha.
and where they're coming from. So that's one thing we've definitely been working on.
Well, that's good. And that kind of leads me into like what I was saying. Obviously, we saw you guys at the major. You guys struggled in hard point. Unfortunately, you guys didn't win a hard point, but I think on the bright side, you guys got top 4. You guys still look better than majority of the teams there, and you were still taking out teams through the 2, 3, 5, the little specialty there. So how's practice kind of been? We saw you obviously last week win some hard points and kind of get your guys' self on the board. So is the confidence there now? Have you guys been playing well through the respawn modes, and are we going to kind of see a complete Toronto Ultra through this next stage?
Hopefully, yeah, we look a lot better at hardpoint. Yeah, that's all I can say. We look a lot better at hardpoint. That's just been our focus. We've been hardpoint, like just solely focusing and going map by map, really. We started off with Bacage because I feel like that one just is probably the weirdest one to figure out, I'd say, because there's no set way of playing it, and it's all timing based. So we were just like, we'll quickly get this like how we roughly want to play it, and then work on the other maps because they're a bit slower. Like you can think more. In there, like we should be better at the slower maps. But I think even during the major, we were like just lacking comms. Really, I feel like I was quite bad with it. Like I feel like it took me a while to obviously fully get back into like the rhythm of being like a leader again. Like I wasn't really, I don't know, I wasn't really like trying to get everyone playing together and stuff, like the micromanaging as much as I did last year. So I've been trying to play on that. Trying to do that, but then yeah, coming into this stage, hopefully IS&D stays strong because it's so hard to like balance the two.
Yep.
I think that's probably the hardest thing. Obviously you'll know, one stage will go from being like unreal at S&D, but then crap at respawn, to the point of, and then it'll go unreal at respawn, crap at S&D. It's so hard to actually like find the balance. But yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
That's fair. I don't know about you, Slight, but I think it'd be cool to get some people in chat who want to ask some questions too. And maybe while that's coming through, I got to know, outside of COD, this is now what, the second year that you guys have all kind of collectively been together. What is like your guys' as a team, like go-to thing that you guys do outside of playing COD? Like any weird, funny stories? Like I have to imagine that Insight does some crazy shit outside of COD.
What do we do outside of we were talking about this yesterday, actually, me and Mark. This has been probably the first team I've ever been a part of where no matter what, we're always doing something together.
Sure.
Like it's the weirdest like dynamic. You can tell like we're just a team. We're always together. always doing something, always getting food together, all going for walks together. Me, Jamie, and Ryan were playing FIFA yesterday together. Like, we'll just always be at the facility chilling, just doing stuff together. But Jamie's a troll. Jamie's a low-key, like, big troll.
Not
in the
surprised.
facility. He's always scheming. He's always scheming.
I gotta ask you, Ben. So you've been in America for quite some time now. We see Tons tweet the other day. I'm sure you saw it on the timeline. I need to know, an American breakfast, or do you like your beans and toast?
God, here we go.
I gotta know, just to ask real quick. You know, you gotta get the nitty gritty out there. You've been here for a minute now.
But what we're classing as an American breakfast? Let's hear it quick, and then I'll judge.
Like eggs and bacon, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like French toast, pancakes, something like that. With I don't know, it could be a mixture of things. There's a wide variety.
I mean, that's technically like Tons thing. You know, like a nice English breakfast. You know, you got bacon, beans, toast, eggs. Like it. How can you not like? I don't know. I'm choosing UK breakfast.
Okay.
Not even close. Not even close.
Have you guys gotten what's Toby's breakfast choice? What's the Dane's choice when it comes to it? Is he kind of rocking more UK style breakfast or American style breakfast?
I don't even know. I don't even think the guy eats breakfast. I'll be real. I don't even know.
What a guy.
Okay, so I see someone in chat. This kind of leads me to something I told you I wanted to just briefly speak about. It's always fun for friendly banter and some things like that. But you and Trey, we've seen all the kind of controversy throughout the years, and you guys are really good friends outside of the game, it seems. But we saw the head-to-head. He says you can't beat him, Ben. What are your thoughts on that, real quick? Tell the fans. Someone asked, what do you guys plan to change in order to beat London? So talk to me a little bit about that. Throw your friendly jab out there.
Bro, he just gets lucky every time, man. There's always something that goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? There's always something like, bro, Black Ops 3, we were 5-2 up last map, and we choked. Like, going into this major, we had the rotation in Gavutu, miss comms, we don't turn around, nasty pinches and pops a free piece, and then they break it, you know, and if we win that, we win the first hard point. Oh, he just gets so lucky, doesn't he? Like, there's something about it when he plays me, right? It's like God doesn't want me to beat him. That's literally all it is, right? But, I mean, we've sorted hardpoint. I think it's going to be a completely different series next time, 100%. He's getting a bit too cocky now.
I like it. And Alan, I don't know if you have any questions you want to ask him or see anything in chat that you want to take from, but I don't know if you saw anything specific.
Obviously, I know a lot of the both you guys and the London team are obviously big football fans. Andres wants to know what your favorite football team is at the moment.
I don't know why I'm calling it this. Soccer, yeah? We're talking soccer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not fake
American football.
Yeah, not fake football. Okay.
We can talk about that for a minute too.
I'll just go play my Fargo in my hometown. I'm not saying I follow United, Manchester United, but they're crap at the moment, so we don't talk about
that. I don't know if you see anything else, Alan, but I really want to get Ben's opinions on a few things. I know he's kind of on a time constraint with things like that. So, I mean, if there's anything else you want to reach out, I'm down to, but I kind of want to talk about some of these roster changes and some of these
let's do that.
New teams and whatnot, kind of get his thoughts on everything.
And your challengers take too, since we brought that up.
Yeah, 100%. So we can kind of lean into that, but I want to talk about the hot topic. I know a lot of people in chat and people all over COD have been talking about it. We're just going to cut right to the chase. The New York subliners, right? They've obviously been super underwhelming, and I've seen tweets and people's opinions basically saying that they could potentially be the most underwhelming COD team or like overrated COD team on paper of all time, which as of right now, I think it's fair to say we'll kind of see what they do over time. But I think you got two of the GOATs on the team originally, right? You got Krim and Clay. And then, they tried to go with that young gun, 2-star SMGs, I guess you would say, with Neptune and Hydra. And they weren't good, right? And now we all know that they're making a roster change. And I'll just go right out and say it. Clay said it on my stream yesterday that he was benched. I think everyone kind of knows it's public knowledge at this point, but I kind of want to get your take, Ben. I've talked to a lot of people about this team and kind of why they were struggling. But just from the outside looking in, you're obviously a player. You've played against them. You've scrimmed against them. You got the most hands-on time with this roster. What do you think their issue was before they made this first change and whatnot?
I feel like they just didn't adapt to the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. I was watching them when they played. Who did they play the other day? With Clay's last match, who did they play with?
Florida was their.
Yeah, they played Florida, and they picked Bocage map 1, and that was when Neptune was running an AR on Bocage.
Yeah. That was a bad. Yeah, that was a lossful thing. But like even on their Gavutu control, I was watching, and like everyone knows B is literally impossible to cap, but they were on A, all of Florida are on B. They've got so much map control, and they've all just sat on A and not moved.
Yep.
And it's just like, if you're any other team, if you're watching Seattle play, because Pred does it a lot, he'll just hit out. If you watch OpTic shots, he's already in their spawn. You know what I mean? Like, teams have already done probably about 3 pushes before New York have even made 1. I just feel like they were like us. Just you're playing it too slow. You're trying to be too methodical because you can't really go for like team pushes almost, because team pushes benefit the defending team.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta make it scrappy. Get in their face, try and get 2 kills, make them like scramble a bit on their setups. And that's just not what they were doing. They were just playing it way too slow, trying to like pick someone off and then like 4 stack or something. It don't work like that in this game.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. But I wouldn't say they're like, you can't really call a team with Clay and Crim overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's probably not a word you can throw on that team. Have they not looked impressive? Yeah. Have they probably like messed up a lot of predictions and stuff? Yeah. But like you could never say a team with Clay and Crim are overrated ever.
Mm-hmm. Something I want to ask. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is kind of maybe as an off the radar spicy take. Do you think that this team would do better if it was more consistent for a double AR setup? Do you think that the team kind of suffers in a way just because of the fact that the main ARs are not like the traditional main ARs that we knew from games past with like the ICR, the Krig, and then like the fully stocked out M4 for Modern Warfare? Or do you think it's just a stylistic thing between all 4 of them?
No, I've coming into this game, I thought they were going to be unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got Nep, who's like the new rookie, Hydra obviously new rookie, both insanely talented. And then you just got Clay and Crim guiding them. Like I honestly thought this team was going to be like a championship winning team coming into it. Just unfortunate the game doesn't play to their strengths or anything like that.
Okay. And that kind of leads me to what I was going to ask you. Phil, from a competitive standpoint, I have my take on this, but I want to know yours. So like we've seen over time, like Alan and I have talked about it before the show, like CDL teams, they go out and they create their rosters before the game comes out, right? Like, so you really don't know how the game's going to come out and play. Like the only thing you can base it off of is the year prior. So like in Cold War, this team would probably be pretty solid, right? It would work out. It's a lot slower of a game. But then you come into Vanguard. Do you think it's something like players can't accept, like, okay, this is the game I'm playing and they like hate, like for instance, like a Bocage, like we know like how Slasher is, right? On like some of these like maps and modes, he's probably just has a hard time accepting like, bro, like this is not competitive. This is hard to play. Do you think it's like something like that for New York? Or like, do you think if they could get past that point, they could make that roster have worked? Or was it just so far gone? The game is like so chaotic and chaos and like just not regular Call of Duty that we're all used to over the time being, and like it's just chalked.
It definitely is like that. Like, I think our team was quite bad for it. I'll admit. Like, we were comparing stuff to Cold War.
Mhm.
Like, we would pull up our VOD for the scrim. We'd be going over something. We'd be like, but this would never happen on a normal COD. But it's just like, who cares? It's not like, it's not that game. We can't compare it to another game. This is the game we're playing. We've got to deal with it. Like, this is the logic that's on this game. So we've just got to like adapt to it. We got to learn it. We can't just sit there and be like, oh, but on Cold War this would have never happened, because we're not playing Cold War, and we just got to deal with it. And I feel like for them, they were in that probably cycle, New York, and now it's just to the point where they probably have just got like issues with each other as well now. Obviously they're changing like coaches. You know, Revan's no longer their head coach. Like, that's when you know like they're just throwing anything to see if it works at this point. So yeah, you kind of have to probably make roster changes to fix that, because else you're just gonna go into a deep spiral.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of saw them go down, was that spiral effect, and just they were trying literally anything and everything, and unfortunately it couldn't work. But I mean, I've talked about this before. At the end of the day, like, no matter how good the Call of Duty is, if it's super competitive, it makes sense, if it's squad spawns, whatever, there is a right way to play it and there's a good way to play it. And I think, like you said, your team has understood that now and like accepted, like, we're going to get the Vanguard effect sometimes on some of these hills, some of these rotations, but you just got to be one with Vanguard and make it work. And I think, I don't know, it's cool to see like the top teams continue to do that year after year, no matter what the circumstances are. So props to you guys, and hopefully we will see kind of this New York team transition. But that leads me into the roster change. We've seen, like I said, we talked about Clay. I think that was probably his last series as of now on New York for right at the time being. Obviously everyone knows that the rumors on Twitter are majority of the time they are true nowadays. There's nothing really that's ever a secret anymore, unfortunately. Man, like guy. It's always been a thing for the last like 2 years since Intel COD became a thing. Like, he's usually 99.9% of the time he's spot on. So if you follow him on Twitter, you've probably seen that Paul X is in the mix, and that's kind of what we know as of right now. Do you think that from the outside looking in, I mean, Alan or Ben, you may have played against them already, I don't know, do you think that will fix their issues or not? For my opinion, I think like it'll help them having a faster AR or a flex like role, but I just don't know. Yeah. I was saying if they could do it, if they were going to bench Krim or Clay, they need to make a 2-person change, in my opinion. Like, no matter what, agreed, for you to see like a full turnaround from this team, like it would have to be a 2-person change. So I don't know, Ben, you may have played against them. I don't know if you have. I didn't even ask you that off stream, but kind of give me your takes on right now is what we know.
Pressure. Well, we have played them. I don't. They still had like all the original rosters. What's it called? Gamer tags. So if they have obviously made a roster change, we couldn't see it.
Okay, I got you.
But we did play them yesterday, and they did look a lot better. So if the rumors are true and it is Paul X, they do look a lot better with him. But that's nothing against Clay. I just think they needed to like a fresh face in there, you know, to get some energy, you know, because like Hydra and Nep were playing like really well. If it is them, I have no idea. I'm just going off the scoreboards of Neptune playing. But yeah, it's just weird. To be fair, he was running the Havoc class, so I was like, hang on a second, what's going on here? Could be Havoc.
Okay.
I'm throwing stuff around, you know, just trying to create some drama, you know what I mean?
Stir the pot just a touch.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's just say that it is Paul first and foremost. If the rumors are true for Clay, do you think that one move is enough for this team, or do you think it does need to be a 2-person move? Because we've obviously seen kind of the back and forth between Neptune for royalty. No, never mind, Neptune back in. No, never mind, Neptune's going to try to run an AR. I mean, what are your kind of thought process over the full roster as a whole compared to just the Paul in, Clay out idea?
Well, I mean, they obviously it's hard looking in because you don't know the ins and outs.
Right.
But a one-player change can do a lot. Like, look at us from last year.
That's fair.
We changed one, and Jamie probably revamped the whole team. It was a complete different team, brand new look, everything, and all of us just improved massively. So when people say like you got to make a 2-roster change, I kind of disagree, unless it's too far gone. Unless it's to the point where everyone's having arguments with everyone. But one roster change can change the team completely. It's just if they want to build on it, really, because I feel like once you get Neptune and Hydra going, I feel like that's when the team looks scary, because they are like Neptune's such a finessey guy. Like, he's actually annoying to play. Like, last year he used to piss me off because he's just one of those, like, he's just a cracked Halo kid, isn't he? He's literally just a cracked Halo kid, and you know them Halo boys are diffy. So yeah.
Well, hopefully, yeah, that'll kind of turn things around for them. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I think we get to see them. Do they play tomorrow? Yeah, they play tomorrow.
We'll play tomorrow.
First match, I want to say, or maybe no, second match. Sorry.
Yeah, they play Paris
versus Paris.
Wait.
Yeah. So,
what are your thoughts on New York, Paris, with all of the possible moves, Bance? What are your thoughts there? That's going to be I don't even know how to predict that one.
Paris are a weird one as well. 'Cause
Right?
I don't know. I don't like the roster of Paris. I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't like it because I just feel like the players don't mix.
Mm-hmm.
Like Temp with like Jimbo,
Yeah.
and then with John. I don't know. It's just such a like weird roster. It doesn't make sense to me. But they play like we scrimmed them. We were scrimming them at the event before their match against Seattle, and they did look good. Like they do look good. That's why it's really weird to me. They're such a weird team because they're unreal at S&D. Like they're really good at S&D, and then it's just like their respawn. It's like good, but then it can also look bad. You know, it's like kind of streaky almost. But it's such I can't even predict that match, honestly. Like that's actually a difficult one for me. I don't know who to pick because they're both like. I feel like New York may come out and win it, but it would be a 3-2 if anything.
All right.
I like it. I like it.
Spicy.
It'll definitely be interesting to see. I feel like from my perspective, like it's like almost a must win for New York, right? Like you make this roster change. You've been down in the dumps for the last few weeks. Like you literally haven't won a hard point the entire stages so far of the qualifiers. So like I think with them making another change, and like you said, you played against them. Apparently they've been looking decent in practice so far. And I think like you said, the biggest thing for me is like it's just a reset of vibes. I don't think Krim or Clay are bad players at all in Call of Duty. I think Clay could take a starting spot at an AR role. Like what you said though, Ben, I just don't think in this game and the formula that it is with how crazy and hectic it is, I just don't think them two together on the same team worked. I don't know what your thoughts are kind of on that, but I think Clay deserves a spot still. I don't care if he was underperforming. If you're 0-13 in hardpoint and you're dropping a 1.2, like everyone's just going to be like, Clay, you're Killhorn. Like you're not playing the game properly, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know what your take is on that, but I think he still deserves a shot to play. And I would love to see him kind of continue to dominate like he was last year.
Yeah, I agree. It's Clayster, isn't it? Like you can't fault the man, to be honest. I've always said he's probably one player I'd love to play with. Because he just always knows how to win. He is a winner. Like he's a part of like those 5 or 6 players that just know how to win. So anyone hating on him is just like, yeah, he's had a few bad maps, but like so's everyone. Every player's gonna go for it. If you're 0-13 in hardpoint, I'll be surprised if anyone has come out of that positive.
That's
yeah,
tough.
I agree. I mean, I talked to Clay yesterday, and this was a conversation on stream, and he was like, look, like my stats may have looked bad, whatever. He's just like, I hope players haven't like forgot that like who I am and what I am as a player and what I can bring to a team. He's like, he goes, I literally could have easily kill Horde. And he gave Bocage, for instance, he's like, say we're trying to break P2 from the front. He's like, I can go sit on the tank and get 8 kills. He goes, or I can push and maybe get, 2 and 4 or something like that, or die a few more times. But he's like, at least I would give up less time on the hard point and try and win. He's like, it's in my blood. He's like, I just can't play that way anymore to make my stats look good and like try and guarantee a spot on a team. He's like, I'm going to try and win. He's like, so obviously my stats aren't going to look good. And I'm a firm believer of it. Like I said, in my past, I've always been like fundamentals and trying to play correctly. And it's like a rotational game. If someone's behind you, you push, that whole thing. So I don't know. I think he definitely deserves a spot. And I'm kind of excited to see what New York looks like without him, but also to see if Clay will kind of get another shot in the CDL this year. But I think that's kind of it on New York. I've kind of hit everything. We can kind of transition, if you want, Alan, into some of these matches today, get Ben's takes before he's got to dip out and kind of speak about it. And kind of leads us into the first match of the day. This will be London Royal Ravens going up against the Paris Legion. And like you said, some of these series for me, like, I don't know. It's weird to me that London has looked so good. Like even with them putting in Paul for Gizmo, I thought that was a great like swap. I don't know what your thoughts on that were, Ben, but I thought that was a great kind of flip-flop of players. I thought they would look similarly pretty good to what they did at the major, but I mean, they look great, right? They beat LA Thieves in 3-0 fashion. They're continuing to be a top dog in the league, and it's a fun little rivalry that we get to see from them to you guys. So I don't know. They've looked really good. And then you see this Paris Legion roster go up. Jimbo, obviously, in his last game did not look good. Had an absolute stinker in his series, which sucks to see from the new guy coming in. I want to see kind of if he can turn it around, but like you said, you've been playing against those guys a little bit. Do you think Paris can turn things around from what their last series looked like, or do you think it gets to the point where it's like too far gone in a way?
Paris. Well, I mean, we play them next weekend, so I can't really say them too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand.
Like I said, they're a weird team. I mean, I feel like, well, they're a fresh team, and Jimbo's like new to the league, so I feel like he's just got to find his footing because he was really good in challengers.
Yep.
Like I know he
Very
was
good.
on obviously Toronto's radar coming into this year, and also during challenges when Toronto were playing on the Toronto Ultra Academy. So he's definitely a good player. It's just trying to get him to like feel comfortable almost. Because he definitely didn't look comfortable. It's hard to just come in and just fry. It's not like it's an easy thing. Most people don't just instantly come in fry. Like I remember Jerry playing you at ESWC on Black Ops 3 in the group games. Remember we played and you 3-0'd us in the group games and I got smoked. Like you guys smoked me, and I remember people just coming up to me going, it's a different ball game. This international stuff, Ben. I don't know if you can cope. Yeah, it's completely different. It's not like you can just come in and instantly fry. So I've definitely been on that receiving end as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's like a big thing is like just adjusting to kind of who you're playing. I know Alan has a lot of thoughts on Jimbo just because he plays such like an aggressive play style, but I feel like when you get into the
challengers,
when you get into like the big leagues and you're playing against some of the best, you like you said, Ben, you have to like adjust. You got to play players to an extent with respect. Like you got to be like, all right, I'm playing Bance. Like I know how he thinks in college. It's a mind game at some point, right? Like when you're playing against the best players, you almost have to turn your brain into theirs and think how they think. So like for me, I think for him to find success, he needs to just slow it down a little bit. Think that, okay, these players watch these lanes. Like they play at the top level. They're really good search and destroy teams. And I know I was kind of hard on him when he was playing Minnesota Game 5, like on Bocage. Some of the lanes and routes he was hitting, I was just like, bro, come on, you're playing a really good search and destroy team, the best search and destroy team in the league. Like, give them the time of day to be like, all right, they're gonna watch this cut or watch this fast aggressive route. Like they're not amateurs, they know what's going on. So, I know, Alan, you can talk a little bit on that.
Yeah, maybe this is kind of an off the beaten path question for it, but it's kind of hitting me as we're talking through it because for your guys' squad with Ultra, you've got a bunch of the challengers players that kind of come into the Toronto scene, kind of interspersed between 2 different years, but the familiarity of those 3 on top of yourself playing together before the Pro League was already in some form established when they were playing with like Singularity, for instance. And then the same thing is happening with London right now, where you've got this combination of Afro and Nasty and Gizmo that have all played together on the come up through both Modern Warfare and I think most specifically Cold War. Then you look at a team like Paris that's just like, let's just throw individual challengers players together that are kind of independently doing well. Is there something to be said about trying to find newer players over the course of the last couple of years that already have synergy built? Does that allow more success, do you think, in the CDL versus just picking up that one guy that happens to be doing well in the Elite or during the Cups?
Yeah, I feel like it helps, because when you're picking someone up, you gotta just like think about everything. You can't just think, oh, this guy's frying, let's just add him into the team. It doesn't work like that.
Fine, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. If you look at every team that does well, they've got like a different type of bond. If you like, they're all just friends outside of the game. If you can see yourself hanging around with like some people outside of the game, you're gonna do well. You're not gonna have like some unreal team chemistry, some unreal vibes if you don't even talk to them outside the game. Like, how are you expecting it to all click if they're not someone you'd hang around with outside the game? If you just look at like FaZe, for example, they're like a close team. You look at OpTic, they're a vibey squad. Like London now, for example, they are a team. All these people now, you've got to find people that you just want to be around, you want to hang around with, you want to have fun with, and you play your best COD when you're having fun.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because me and Tommy were even talking about that on the flank the other week. We were like saying how important it is, and like people would state, oh, it doesn't matter who you play with, or it doesn't matter like from the fan perspective. They're like, you just got to play COD. It's Call of Duty, and I just completely agree with you. I think that's something I've always said through my career. It's like you got to have people that you vibe with in and out of the game. You got to be comfortable with giving criticism because if me and you are boys, Ben, and we're having a conversation about COD, and I give you criticism, but you respect me and we're boys outside of the game, you're going to take it a lot better than someone who like is hard-headed or they don't really get along well. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is something you see from from the top teams. They all are good friends in and out of the game. They can vibe and hang out and enjoy themselves, and that's why you see so much success from a lot of these newer rosters, and like you said, some of these new trios coming up from challengers and whatnot. So it's exciting to see. I think London's looked really good on paper. They've continued to dominate, and until they give me a reason kind of not to trust them, and I really won't. So I don't know. This series, I don't know. I want to give Paris the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think, for me personally, even if Jimbo has a good series and performs a lot better, which I think he will from that series he had last week, I think he'll perform a lot better. I just don't think this team, in my opinion, is there yet to compete with the likes of London. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my prediction early out, and I think I got London winning this one like 3-1, in my opinion, man. I don't know. I just don't see Paris taking this one.
This is a tough one because you get Jimbo's tweet talking about how he knows he has to play a good week of COD this week, otherwise he's probably out, and like that's the last thing you want, is someone to kind of individually feel scared about their position on a team. But I mean, yeah, Gizmo back, I feel really good about this team. I think we talked about it last week, just even with Paul in the mix, like you could see that they've got protocols set in place as far as what needs to happen first before we can take that extra step, before we really throw our positioning into the mix. So yeah, I've got London in this one. I'm gonna take this one 3-0 actually, personally.
Benjamin Bance, if you want to give your kind of thoughts without getting bad juju anywhere. I know how it is as a player sometimes.
Yeah. I'd probably say 3-1 London. You just got to back them. Even with a pickup, they looked like a top tier team. You just can't fault them at the moment, the way they're playing. And they're riding that momentum as well. I've been on that train, and it's a good train to be on. So yeah, probably I'd say 3-1. That Paris will take the search.
Yeah, I think what you said, that's the plus though, right? For this Paris team, it's like if they can put together a respawn mode like consistently, I think they could be dangerous. Like we saw them take out Minnesota last week when they played in SND, and it was in fair fashion. I think they won that 6-3 on Tuscan, and we saw them win that a lot. So I don't know. I hope Paris can turn it around. I hope they can continue to kind of make some improvements, and we can see kind of Jimbo stay in the mix. I'm a big fan of like rosters staying the same for a little bit. I hate that with so many eyes now on the CDL, and we can kind of talk about this a little bit too, Ben, but like I know there's more eyes now on the CDL than ever before, right? There's people, there's the flank, there's the YouTube. Like I talked about this the other day. It used to be you have a bad series and it goes just straight to the YouTube chat and you tweet or whatever, GG's, and it's done for, and it's said and done, right? And like players get roasted on Twitter for the time being, it's whatever. Now there is so much more and content for COD League, right? It's like you have a bad series, it doesn't just end right there. It's like now we see all these other talk shows, we see the flank, how big it's doing and how good it's doing. It's like hit on like 3-4 times, and there's so much more brought up to it. So leading to my point, it's like now there's more eyes on it than ever before, and people feel like there's so many roster changes that need to be made so early because the league realistically is super short, right? Like you play these 5 league games, you go 0-5, well, your team's not feeling confident. Then you go into the losers bracket of a major, play a one and done series, probably playing a hot team coming down from winners, and then you just bombed out of the tournament. It's like, okay, well, what do we do? Do we just keep the same roster and hope it changes, or do we go to the drawing board and figure that out? So like, I don't know. I would like in Paris's side to stay the same for a little bit. I don't think swapping players in and out all the time will guarantee to just improve the team.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. To be honest, I feel like people are way too quick to change. I feel like you just gotta give some people time, give teams time. It's not gonna instantly work. You're gonna go through things, so you just work it out, and you'll end up getting the results you want. It's just how much you actually want it as a team, and how much you're willing to sacrifice as a team to get that. Maybe it's an ego check. Like everyone's just gotta have a clean slate, think like you're coming into it as a rookie and you give it your all. But you just got to keep working for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think just even going off of that, it's like unless it's too far gone, like we saw in the New York roster, I think then like a change is necessary. But someone in the chat said, look at LAT last year, and I brought that up the other week, Alan, to them. It's like you don't want to see. That's what I don't want to see from the outside looking. It's like I don't want to see a team make a change. It doesn't work. They play like 2 games. They make another change. Then it's still not working. And then they make another change. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like when you get to that point, it, like you said, but it's just a cycle. And it just like, you get on every day, you play, you don't see the results. You wonder why you're not seeing the results. And you're just playing the top 4, top 6 teams that haven't changed all year long, and they're just continuing to dominate and stay in top heavy of the league. And so that's just on my side. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's kind of my final thoughts on as far as like roster changes and London, Paris. I don't know if any of you have any more talking points.
The only other thing that I kind of always default to is I feel like the Call of Duty scene as a large is just a very impatient scene where it's this team didn't play well, this player didn't have this good series, so you've got to talk about changes immediately. Where I feel like the culture, at least for the teams that are most successful, is not just evaluating the immediate what's going on, but is what we have going on right now potentially going to build towards a championship, right? Like, what is the last part of the year going to look like with this culture that we have built, whether that's by roster, by coaches, by organizational standards? And I think that's where I think a lot of the community kind of misses out on looking at some of these teams. And some of the teams themselves, I think, kind of also miss out because of that immediate pressure of our fan base is large. We're not putting together good results, so we have to kind of cater towards finding W's. It almost feels that. I'm not saying that's a one-for-one thing, but that's kind of what it largely feels like when you start to see teams make those aggressive changes so quickly. And we talked about this last week. You know, it's just for a team like Paris, you've got 4 players, none of which are in the same location. You know, there's no facility for them. The backing of the organization at large, we largely have seen that it's not really to the same levels of a Toronto where they've got everything built up for them, or, you know, your OpTics or your, even your phases. It's just, that's not a one-for-one organizational comparison. And that's I think the tough part about being a team like Paris is how do you overcome those struggles, I think, with a team that is not in the same location, a roster that continues to kind of be the last team put together every year. It just feels like they're having to hurdle so many obstacles compared to other teams just based on how they're set up for the year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. I mean, Ben, I want to ask you too. So me personally, I was having a great career until kind of the COVID league hit, is what I like to call it, through the online league. But I was one of those players who actually never got to play an online league match from a facility with my team. I was always in my bedroom playing. I kind of want to know, do you feel like you would be checked out? You've obviously been blessed to be on Toronto and play in the facility every day and kind of keep that tournament atmosphere and that vibe going. But like, can you imagine if you were sitting in your bedroom playing, like competing with your teammates, but not like in that tournament vibe? Do you think it would throw you off a little? Because I think that, like, I think Paris, is, from my understanding, is the only team right now in the league that's doing this. They're not allowing their player, or not, they don't have a facility, from my understanding, for the players to kind of play with each other. So give me your kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's definitely way worse. We've had times, so obviously with like quarantine coming back from events, there's been times where we've had to play matches from our apartments. Yeah, it's just not the same. You're sitting in your bedroom playing a match that could potentially, like, down the line win you like a couple 100,000. Like, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
You know, like, everyone's came through these events where you're having people watch and everything. So yeah, definitely it's not the same.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's important for that for sure. And I think, Ben, I don't want to keep you too long. I see Kleenex in the chat saying you got VOD, so you may have to get on, get rolling. I don't want to get you in trouble. But I just want to say thank you for coming on, Ben, and we appreciate you, bro, and good luck in your matches this week. And everyone go show Ben some love on Twitter and on social media. So appreciate you, bro. Hope you have a good day, homie.
Thank you very much for having me. Hope you have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care, brother.
Buddy.
Thank you.
All right, chat. Shout out to Benjamin Bance, the absolute GOAT. We're kind of going to switch back over to this duo cam. And he's a good guy, man. Wish him and his team nothing but the best. Hopefully he can go get in some VOD. Sorry, Mark UB and Kleenex and Insight and Co. So don't be mad at him.
When Kleenex is coming in,
yeah, I see him in chat. I'm like, all right, he needs to get going. But it's good to Wance in the chat for the one time for him. We appreciate him. And like I said, wish nothing but the best for him and his team through the year. Hopefully they can win some hard points. But that will kind of transition us. They do got some
tough schedule coming up too, so they got to get the work done, right?
That's something I wanted to touch on too. They do have some hard matches, but that'll transition us kind of into the second match of the day here, Alan. It'll be the Seattle Surge versus OpTic Texas. It's that's gonna be I think it's gonna be a banger, dude. I really do.
Me too. I think, I know people were kind of asking about what the potential map set was going to look like for that London-Paris series. I don't think we can go off of any previous result for that series, largely because I think London's going to try to flex their map pool a little bit, and I think Paris needs to figure out what is exactly, what do they want to play. But getting into the Seattle OpTic match, this is also an interesting one because I kind of touched on this a little bit, and I talked about this in the best of 3 pod. this is a matchup that is pretty important to the overall standings, which is something that we have to kind of keep in mind as we look down the line, talking about putting yourselves in a position to be at the top of the overall CDL, looking forward towards things like CDL Champs playoffs. So this is a pretty important series kind of in the mix for both of these two teams. And this is a difficult one, I think, just generally because of the fact that they naturally kind of veto out some of the same ideas. Like, it's tough because you don't want to play OpTic on Bacage, but Seattle's also pretty bad on Berlin. The good news about this is OpTic also has not showcased a lot of success on Berlin. So I think this is going to be interesting just to see, is OpTic going to want to try to build out their map pool a little bit and give themselves a true competitive test throughout this series? Or are they going to try to play for a win, in which case we'll probably see Gavudu Tuscan as our 2 hardpoint maps. So I don't know. I've got this one going a very tight affair. Whether it's 5 maps, 3 maps, 4 maps, doesn't make a difference. I think every map is going to be tremendously close.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think we saw OpTic in that nail biter win, but it was such a weird win, right? Like, I thought, in my opinion, like, OpTic dominated like Thieves, right? Like, I think last week they played so well. Like, in the maps they did win, obviously, other than map 5, like, those 2 respawns were so dominant. Like, they were literally clinical. They won 2 offenses on a Tuscan control. I think we saw in the listen-in, like, the vibes were flowing, the energy's there. Those guys were thriving off of that major win, and they're continuing to do so far in these qualifiers. But then on the flip side, we see a Seattle Surge team. We've talked about it a lot. Like, they were on the verge of a roster change, right? If they lose that FaZe series, these guys are down in the dumps. They do the Seattle cursing thing. They beat FaZe. They've looked good. They look good, really good in that series. Honestly, their search and destroy that game 5 was so fluent, so sound. So I don't know. Seattle's kind of on this like revenge tour. They want to show teams why, they're still one of the best teams in the game. They want to show where they were left off at the kickoff. Then you got OpTic literally on an all-time high right now. They look amazing, and they've yet to give me a reason to doubt them. So, like, I don't know. I talked with Sam Phoenix a little bit, and he was just like, trust me, like, we got this series. Like, it's in the bag. And I can't lie.
Sam's
like,
always gonna say that,
I know, but like,
the COD community.
I agree. But like, I just think that, like I said, it's going to be a great series, but I don't know. I just, like I keep saying, I can't doubt this OpTic team, right? Like, they actually look so good across the board in all their modes. And it's like, it's honestly amazing to see. I've competed against the OpTic brand for a long time, and like, I feel like they always kind of had like a weak mode or a weak link like type thing. And now it's like, I don't know where you judge this team. The biggest thing for me was like, is Illy the X factor? Yeah, he is. Like, will he continue to perform? And it's like, he's given me no reason to doubt him so far. Like, ever since that finals versus FaZe, he's been dominant. Like, he's dropping, I don't know. I just view him as like, he's like such an aggressive player, right? He plays at such a fast pace, and when he's dropping over a 1 KD, like, it's so crazy to see. And then like on the flip side too, someone just brought it up in the chat. Like, we talked about it last week. It's like Mac Melts has been frying. Like, this guy's been playing so well. I know in that series versus FaZe, he had over 100 kills and a 1.2 KD. So very impressive to see. And I hope he can kind of keep up that level of play. And I think that's why he'll keep this series super competitive.
The thing for me on this one is, a lot of people were coming off of that Seattle losing streak and saying that this team was going to be in the bottom 4 of the power rankings. But we kind of talked about this briefly. Like, the coach's power ranking still has them top 8 in the 7th position at the moment. I still consider them to be a top 6 team overall. And the thing, kind of like the same boat with Toronto, is like, this Seattle team's going to reflect off of the tight losses they had and come out stronger. And they absolutely proved that against FaZe. I mean, especially with what they were able to put together in the search and destroy, and then also to be coming out on one of their worst hardpoint maps in Berlin and be able to take it in a convincing fashion is good news. So I don't know if you want to jump right on into what you think map count wise, but I'm willing to kick us off here. I've got this one going 5, but staying with OpTic.
Okay. I like that. I think, I don't know. I could see it going the stretch, but in my opinion, I think Seattle's just going to lose like a close respawn to close out the series. I got Seattle winning this one 3-1. I think if it were to go 5,
love this.
I'm a big fan of kind of Seattle being just what they showed me last week in their game 5 versus one of the best teams in the game, FaZe Clan. They looked very dominant. I'm interested to see kind of how these videos will go down with this series as well, but I don't know. I just got OpTic winning this one 3-1.
OpTic
3-1. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking if it goes 5, I think Seattle will. Sorry, I said that completely wrong. I think OpTic will win 3-1. If it were to go 5, I would give it to Seattle, but I think it'll be a 3-1 OpTic. I think they look too good, and that's on me. Chat regain. But
Easy reading.
I think I think they got this one 3-1. I just, like I said, I think they look too dominant across all the game modes right now. They've looked great in Search and Destroy. Their Respawn continues to look dominant, and we will see kind of how the series plays out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what we've seen, and it's kind of like a finally moment when it comes to what Illy's been able to do in the last couple of weeks. You know, I kind of came off at the beginning of the year. I was most questioning would Illy actually come out and have a season where he really has been kind of expected to be, because we didn't really see it fully in Modern Warfare, and then there were moments in Cold War where it was just like, is he going to be able to show us that he's got MVP potential? Absolutely has done so. So I'm pumped to see that, and I think that makes OpTic a very dangerous team for anybody, especially the Seattle squad. So
I agree. I'm interested to see too. I don't know what control we're gonna see. I wonder if, I know Seattle likes playing Tuscan a lot, but like, do you square up against Dashy again? The guys like tweeting out the map needs to be a top team or a top map for the entirety of COD. Like, I don't know, he loves it. OpTics looks so fluent and sound on it. It's like I said, they won 2 offenses versus LA Thieves last week. Do you square up on it? If like Seattle wins the coin toss, do you just square up on Tuscan, or do you try and take it over to Gavutu and switch things up and kind of make OpTic play out of their comfort zone?
There's no easy answer, because OpTic has lost 1 control map all year long. So it's like, what do you do there? And that was at the beginning of the year versus London, where I think they were still trying to get their feet underneath them when it comes to how do they going to approach control in the first place. So I don't think either option is a great option. I think if you're Seattle, you've got to be able to win both of your maps and then probably steal away the Search. Like, I think if Seattle were to win this, it would have to be in map 5, kind of like the same thing that you had mentioned, but I still think that OpTic's gonna be too strong.
I don't know. I don't see, OpTic just looks so good until they change the control thing from ticks to, or from kills to ticks. I don't see OpTic, like their performance isn't going to change in control, and it's like, I don't know, there's no arguing point for this. Exactly. So I'm interested to kind of, I want to see that change though be implemented. I want to see if it changes some of the top dog teams in control to kind of be lesser, and if it helps some of the teams that aren't as good at control. But like I said, I think I got OpTic winning this one 3-1. That's kind of my final thoughts on it, unless you have anything else. It'll be a fun game to see if Seattle can bounce back and see if the players can continue to fry.
I think the biggest thing here is I really do anticipate that OpTic is going to try to play this series out for the W. Just even though I'm imagining that you look towards the longevity of the entirety of the season, you want to build out your map pool. This is still a pretty important match, I would say, as far as the overall standings points are concerned. Plus, if you're Texas, you've got Florida, LAG to still warm yourself back up to kind of open up your map pool when you eventually get to rematch against FaZe at the end of the 3rd week. So I think this is a stage where you'd want to see OpTic try to flex their map pool, but I don't think this is necessarily a series where you're going to see them necessarily open up their map pool considerably.
Yep, I completely agree, and that'll kind of transition. We both did predictions on that one, so that'll transition us into our last match of the entire day. This one should be really good, honestly. We got Minnesota Rokkr going up against Boston Breach, and you and I have kind of spoke about this Boston team, and we've talked a lot about Minnesota. It's just, for me, this is one of those Parasite coin flip series, right? Like, what Minnesota Rokkr?
That for the entire year?
I have to.
Call it a Parasite coin flip.
I've said it. It's just weird, right? Like I don't know. We could argue that when Boston played Seattle, like that series could easily go map 5. We saw how Seattle looked map 5 versus FaZe. It's like, if Capsule doesn't drop those 54 kills, where are they? I don't know. They've looked great, and Boston hasn't given me really a reason to doubt them. But then on the flip side, it's like, I don't know. Minnesota for me is just so like hit or miss. These guys could seriously come out and win this series 3-0, and they could very well get 3-0'd. I don't know kind of what your thoughts are on the Rokkr, but it's just, I don't know if this series is going to be, I think, a banger, but it could easily just be a sweep in one of these teams' favor.
Well, the biggest thing that I think we learned from week 1 of the stage 2 qualifiers is that the role swap is providing better results in some regard, but it's not significant enough, as we learned versus Toronto, to allow them the chance to really kind of use this role swap as an opportunity to immediately beat some of the best teams in the game. Now, I put emphasis on immediately because I think that there is going to be some figuring out, and now that they've had some chances to go back and reflect over that Toronto series in particular, I think you're going to start to see better coordination with the role swap between Priest and Attach, and then also coordinating that with their new kind of quote-unquote duos in their roles, right? Like that coordination with Standy on one side and Major Maniac on the other. So I think that this Minnesota team is going to come out better, but I don't think they're going to come out to be good enough to beat Boston. I think this could be a tight series, but I still put more favor into Boston, who have shown continual improvement, and at a pretty rapid rate, mind you, as well. Like outside of the control, I think we're starting to see them be much more sufficient and efficient, I would say, largely in what they're doing in hardpoint. I think we really saw that versus Seattle. Like you mentioned, that series very easily could have gone 5, but they're also looking much improved across their search and destroy as well. So I just feel like this Boston team is improving at a much more rapid rate, and Minnesota is still trying to play a little bit of catch up with this role swap that they put in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the biggest thing for me will be like kind of how the vetoes play out. I don't want to see Minnesota play Boston on a bow cage, in my opinion, on hardpoint. Because
or Berlin, really.
Yeah, I know. So it gets scary there, and like I don't know, on the side of Boston, like I love when TJ's running an AR. So it's like, I don't know. I've seen Brian Saint kind of say if they win out the first hard point, they're basically guaranteed to win the series 3-0. So I'm curious to see how the vetoes will unfold. I think that they like Gavutu hardpoint a lot with this role change. So I'm interested to see if they'll play that or if Boston will even allow that to be in. It'll play pretty interesting. And then they're both really good search and destroy teams, like you said. Boston has yet to win a control, really. So they're kind of not the best control team in the world. So I don't know. It's going to be a back and forth series here, but I don't know if you want to kind of transition that right into predictions or if you want to speak a little bit. I'm going to go, I don't know. Every time I doubt the Breach, man, they seem to win. So I'm just going to go on the Boston Breach train again. I think they got this one 3-1. I want to say, I think if it were to go 5, I would give it to Minnesota, but I think Boston will close it out 3-1. I think Nero Poison's kind of the X factor for this roster.
Agreed.
Hopefully he'll have a good series. Or I just want to see him drop a 1. If he drops a 1 flat with the aggression he plays, I am so happy. Like if you're a Boston Breach fan and he plays that quick, like I don't know. I just have good promise in the team. I think the maps are going to favor Boston too in this series a lot. Like I was saying last week a ton. I love seeing them on any map other than Bow Cage. I don't think Minnesota will square up with it. And overall, I think they've looked like the better team. I don't think the role switch is going to save Minnesota. So
no, I actually have the exact same map count as well. I've got this going 3-1 with Minnesota taking the control because I think Boston desperately need the tick progression change to come through. I just feel like their play style, they're really kind of like they'll open up like a big kill streak and then just kind of try to finesse a little bit too much for kills instead of being able to necessarily focus on the objective overall. I think with that change, they'll be a naturally better control team. But at the moment, like what we saw with them on Tuscan, especially against Seattle, is just like it's hard to kind of justify finding W's off of the kill count right now, I think, for this Boston team. Hopefully they look better. I would like to see that come through because right now they are losing a lot of defenses, which there isn't a great excuse for that, I would say, just because of the way that both the maps super favor the defensive setups for control. But I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. I've got Boston winning the 1-2 and the 4 here and taking this 3-1.
Yep, I think I would have to agree with you. I keep talking about it too. The control, I want that to be changed so bad. I hope we'll see it in the middle of this major, just because
change the league a lot.
Yeah, it will. I'm super curious to see like if Boston's a great example. Will it transform their control? Will it not? But my worry. The only reason I think it'll help them is because I think they have such an aggressive play style as a team and they throw away a lot of lives. But I just don't know, like you said, if they're losing defenses and control, like tossing away certain rounds, it's you can't argue that it's going to help them. But I don't know. It could help them and a few other teams in the league. So I'm excited for that to kind of come into play. I think it'll lighten up control and make it a lot more enjoyable to watch. You won't see as many just kill like dependent modes or rounds where some of these teams kind of just strictly play for defense. So I'm excited for that change, but I think that kind of wraps up the matches for the week. I'm excited to see how all of these matches pan out. I think we got some really good ones today, honestly. You could argue that the first one won't be good, but I think Paris will have a little bit of a bounce back. I think we're followed up by another really good match. I think Seattle OpTic for me is the key match of the day. I'm excited to watch that and see kind of what Seattle team we get, because like if they come out and get dominated, it's like people are going to argue that again Seattle may need to kind of flop things around. So I can't wait for the matches today. I don't know if you want to take a few little fan questions for a little bit and then kind of wrap it up. So chat, if you guys want to go ahead and put some questions in the chat, we will go ahead and answer some of them, and then I'll kind of take this time being while we are waiting for some questions to flow in. If you guys are following us or live with us right now on Twitch, make sure to please follow the channel. And if you guys are watching over on YouTube, please drop a like and comment down below what you guys would like to see in some of the other videos. We've been vibing, and make sure to please go follow Alan. His Twitter is right below his little cam. Go show him some love on social media. He's always grinding in the scene and whatnot. But we will kind of take some questions. I see some flowing in now. Let me see. Does Seattle make a roster change if they lose? I actually like this question. You and I have spoke about it a lot.
We've talked about it a little bit.
But your go-to guy for this team, we think now is going to be wrapped up on the New York Subliners. So do you think if I personally think, in my opinion, I've said this before, I don't think we'll see a change from Seattle this stage. I think that those guys are a firm believer in teamwork and like making things work out, knowing how their coaching staff are and some of those players. So I think we'll see them kind of stick it out. But I think after the stage, if you do not see them perform well at Major 2 and end up at like a top 6 finish, I think you'd see a change from them at that point.
Yeah, the thing in, I thought that I was kind of going out on a ledge with, 1 foot over, talking over the fact if Seattle continues to not improve after what we saw from the major and after their loss to Boston, the Atlanta series, even with an L, would have shown us, I think, enough to see, was this team going to be salvageable? And I think that everyone was leaning towards, sure, they're going to be salvageable. But if there were to have been major problems versus Atlanta, again, you got to remember that this Seattle group stage is difficult. They play literally like all of the top teams, save Boston at the beginning of it. So it would have been a very trying qualifying stage, but that win versus Atlanta, I think, gives a little bit of extra confidence that, hey, not only is this roster working, but where our minds are when it comes to working out our problems, it's also finding improvement and success. So I think Seattle for sure is going to feel comfortable with this roster moving through this stage. It would have to be like the wheels just randomly fall off, and not just one, but like all 4 just at the same time pop off. And it's just like, okay, well, what the heck's going on now? But I think the Seattle team is going to be fine, even if they do find themselves in a 2-3 overall win-loss record for the qualifiers. They have a difficult stage ahead of them, and I think they're going to learn the most in this next 2 weeks as they're getting ready for stage 2 major. So I'm pretty pumped about what this roster can do, and it's going to be a trying series of qualifiers, but I think they're going to learn a lot about themselves in this next 2 weeks.
Okay, I like it. I got 2 back-to-back ones. This one will be a good one for us. If the Challengers Open bracket goes well in Minnesota, is this something we should expect to see at all of the majors moving forward, or does it just depend on the work the org is willing to put in? I know from my side of things, and you can kind of speak on it, I think it's something that definitely needs to be there. From a competitive standpoint, you definitely need to see like Challengers players. I know you and I have kind of spoke about it a little bit, seeing what they can do on land, letting coaches and players and people being able to kind of scout and watch it, and there needs to be a bigger spotlight on it. The problem is, and where the things lie, is like, from my understanding, Minnesota's putting this on out of their own budget, out of their own deal. And it's nothing.
That's what I've gathered as well.
Yeah, so like it's something that they're going out of their way. So shout out to Minnesota Rokkr. They're doing awesome things for the COD community right now. But it just, I think it needs to be there, and there needs to be events for challengers. But the likeliness of it happening, I just not sure is fully there yet, until there is kind of like more backing, I guess, from some of these either bigger organizations or Activision, and there's kind of a prize pool behind it. It's hard to always just be able to put on a open event for challengers to compete at. But I think that kind of leads me into the conversation too of like, you can answer both of these, but I also love the idea of the I know it's going to be difficult with the league, but like how the challenger teams or the top 4 teams can get to play against the pro league teams. I think, like, I've competed in for a long time in Call of Duty, and some of my favorite events ever was either being dropped off of a team, going into that like part where you don't have a set roster, and getting on another roster and getting to play against, you know what I mean, the top dog teams. So it's like, I think that would be really cool. Like, for instance, let's say Neptune got dropped from New York, goes into challengers. He's on a top 4 challengers team, and now he gets to play against New York. I love that, right? It's like, it's something that like, it's like, well, you think I got dropped or I deserve to be dropped, but now I'm going to prove to you. So I don't know, answer both of those, but that's what I think needs to be a thing for longevity of COD.
Having a challengers event at every stage locally is a necessity. It is an absolute necessity, not only because it makes the challengers players have a venue to really be able to showcase themselves outside of the online arena, but think also what that does for ticket sales. Like, you've now got all of these teams that are coming into play, and then once they're knocked, you're going to have a full venue every single day after the first day of challengers. That happened during BO4. We also saw it at Minnesota. That's just, it's a smart financial move when it comes to ticket sales overall. So I think it's good for COD, not just because of the competitive venue for challengers, but also for the audience participation side of it. Now for the Pro-Am, the biggest thing about the Pro-Am, and it kind of piggybacks off of what I had said earlier, asking the question about like, how sufficient is it to be able to pull one player out of challengers to go insert into the CDL where you have never seen them play in that style of competitive arena before to know if they're going to be successful? Like, you have situations like that with Jimbo, obviously right now is the most, I think, potent idea of it. But now you've got a Pro-Am where you're looking at all the 4 best teams internationally, by the way, because the Minnesota Open will qualify all 4 teams to that Pro-Am. So it could be a team from APAC, it could be teams from Europe, it could be teams from Latin America, for all we know. It doesn't just give the ability to grow globally what Call of Duty is as a universal esport, but on top of that, it gives the opportunity now for these top 4 teams to really be able to see what it looks like to play at the CDL level, which is not just beneficial for them, but also, of course, for the organizations in the CDL to say, hey, it's not just this guy doing super well in challengers. He's able to hang versus a group stage of 3 other CDL teams. He's still putting together those numbers, or this team overall has 2 great guys that are working together. It just gives you a much more secure infrastructure on that ladder of path to pro. So I'm a big fan of it both ways around.
Yeah, no, I'm literally so excited for that Pro-Am event that's been announced and like we'll get to see later on this year. I just love the fact, and you and I kind of briefly spoke about it. It's like you see these challengers players think they deserve to be in the league, which fair play to them if they're dominating in challengers. I think they completely deserve a shot at the league at some point in time. But then I like the flip side of things. It's like, okay, now they get to play with their challengers team against some of the lesser teams in the league, or, you know, they get to go up against the big dogs and play the best teams. And it's like, we get to see them in a bracket structured format where they get to actually showcase their skills, show what they're worth. Like, I just love it. It's like I don't know, you just get to see them battle it out against like the players and see what they can kind of bring to the table. So I'm a huge fan of it. I've always been a fan of it. Like I said, it kind of brings me back to the CWL days where it was the COD World League. And like I said, you would get dropped off of a roster, dropped off of a team. You would get to join another team and then end up matching up against these guys later in an event. And it wasn't like right now, I feel like in the CDL, you get dropped. Like, think about this. Clay, we know he's benched. What if Clayster can now join any team in the CDL, go to this pro or, you know, whatever, in challenges, and then play against some of these teams? Like, think about that revenge tour. Think about the stories. Think about how awesome that would be to watch. So, like, I don't know. I'm just a big fan of it. I think it creates awesome talking points in Call of Duty. I think it gets to really showcase kind of like who the real problems were on the roster. And then you get to see like teams play their ex teams. And like, there's always that argument, like, at some point in time, the player you drop is getting revenge on you. So it's fun to watch and fun to see for sure. So I'm a big fan of it.
The other thing, too, is, and I know a lot of the conversation, and I've been on this side of the conversation, too, is like, it's embarrassing to have your CDL teams lose to a challengers team.
Yep.
Like, you're paying this much amount of money to have a team in the league in the first place. You don't want to see yourself get beat up by challengers players. But over the course of the last 2 years, I think we're starting to really see with the amount of changes that are currently happening, not just this year, but have persisted across the entirety of the league. There is nothing but benefit to being able to watch your team that could be very well be struggling lose to challengers players and be like, well, maybe we just made the wrong call, like we had talked about at the beginning of the year, where it's like we're putting together our roster off of no information as far as what these players or what this conglomeration of players are going to do in the new game. We made a mistake, and now you can fix that. You can remedy that mistake instead of going through the entire year just struggling and suffering and trying to see if you can find the best formula of this one player or that one player. So, it's I think a necessary evil to a certain way to not just allow challengers players to prove themselves, but I think it also largely is just going to overall help the organizations that are struggling, like your Paris's, for instance. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think even for like just a competitive side, from me looking in, like people, like I know a lot of players will argue that the best players aren't in the league right now, or like there's players that could be replaced.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So from like a competitive side of things, I think it just allows for the best players to be in the league. If the top challengers players who are performing and doing well are playing against the pro teams, showcasing their talents and showcasing what they can do, I think you would always have basically like the top 48 players in the world in the CDL right now. So if that was the case. But that kind of wraps up that question. I don't know if you've seen any others. I need to scroll back and kind of find another one or two.
I'll shift skincare routine. It's just moisturizer, face wash and moisturizer. You got it's at my old age, you've got to take care of the skin. It's nothing crazy. I don't use like lemon water with tea tree oil infused or anything like that.
He's glowing.
It's just scrub and moisturizer before bed. That's all you need.
Oh, I saw one earlier. Who do you think the biggest surprise team would be at the Major 2? I think that's you can kind of have a good talking point about this, just because a lot of teams have now made changes. We haven't seen all of the changes, and there's still obviously this weekend's matches and the following week's full of matches. But who could kind of be the, I guess, surprising team? Maybe they're not win the whole thing, but that would have a expectation of performance that you don't. Yeah, like that's kind of what I think. Because in my opinion, I think there's 4 teams that could win the major, and outside of those 4, I don't think there's maybe 4 or 5 you could argue. I don't think there's someone other than that that could win the tournament.
I think your biggest dark horse will probably you'll probably get an answer midway through week 3. I think you're going to learn about Boston and Florida in that head-to-head matchup, because those are the 2 that I'm between right now. You have to obviously pay some respect to Florida because they're 6-0 right now in the map count through this qualifying stage, but to be fair, that's versus LAG in New York. I think you'll learn a lot about Florida against Texas tomorrow. I think that those are going to be this is going to be a really good series. I think you'll learn a lot about Boston versus Toronto tomorrow too. Then of course they play each other week 3. But I think if I were to pick a dark horse, it'd be between those 2 squads. But my answer is a soft answer. I need to see them play a little bit more before I can decide which one I'm picking.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I think those are both really good answers for as far as a dark horse. But I'm gonna go kind of weirder. I think the Seattle Surge are capable. I think they have a really good roster on paper. I think that they're sitting at 9th right now in the standings and could fall down depending on kind of LAG's performance. So they could be sitting right now. They're sitting bottom 4. Obviously they're tied with Florida and Minnesota, but we'll see kind of that fluctuate as the weeks go on going into the major. And like you stated, they have a hard matchup, but I think they're a team that is very capable of making a loser's run if they get hot early. I think they have all the pieces. I actually really like this roster on paper. Like you and I know we're kind of discussing like potential roster changes for them, and in my opinion, I think they have a good fit. Like they have 2 really good submachine gun players. I've talked about it a lot. Mac has been playing really well individually. Pred's been doing his thing. I'm a big fan of Sib. I think he's a great player in that flex role. Then as far as like ARs go, I guess I didn't even think about this. You could see maybe a Clayster. Here.
It's so tough, right? Because like you have to think that Clay is still locked into the contract with New York, and like that would have to be a blockbuster move. Like you would have to either spend a lot of money to just get him flat out, or you'd have to give away a big time player to kind of 1-for-1 it in a way. That is a difficult move organizationally, I would think, for anybody to pick him up. But we kind of talked about this in the best of 3 pod. It was like, one of our questions was, what do you do if you're New York? This is before we knew about Paul. It was like, do you keep the same roster on these new roles? Do you keep the same roster but on their old roles? Do you just sub out one player, or do you make a blockbuster trade for someone like Krim or Clay? And it was just like, it's hard to rationalize the blockbuster trade, because on a business side of things, there's a lot of capital that's behind both of those 2 players. So it's not just as easy as drop and then pick up. It very well may be a big financial move. Either sacrificing for New York to just have someone soaking up so much of your income and not playing, or to try to trade that player around. But
yeah, I'm interested to see too. Like we didn't really even talk about this, like on the business side of things, and like I said, Clay did state on my stream yesterday that he was benched. So I'm open to kind of talk about it, but I just want to see how it plays out over the next few weeks with him. So like, if I know some of these veteran guys who have been around in the scene for a long time, they know how to negotiate. They have people and agents and stuff who help them kind of negotiate their deals. And I wonder if we see something in the likes of like where Clay negotiated his contract to get paid out or something like that. And if they aren't going to use Clay, do they just pay him out and let him go? Because realistically, that's what they would be doing no matter what, right? Yeah. Like if they keep him on the bench, they're going to pay him no matter what every single month. I assume he doesn't have a bench salary. So it's like, do they keep him on the bench and try and not like allow him to go anywhere and like don't let him do the whole revenge tour thing? Or do they let him go, kind of get rid of his contract and he becomes like because if they do that and Clay becomes now a free agent, which I don't know if they would, but it's like if they're not going to use him, he becomes now a free agent and like he's open to any of these bottom 4 teams to joining, or like even the middle of the pack teams. It's like that would be crazy.
Like, it's just weird. Like, where would where would Clay fit in? And like, who needs a good main AR? Paris needs a good main AR, but there's no way in hell he's gonna go play for Paris. And then from there, it's like maybe Florida, but like Davis played really well the last weeks. So it's hard to find like where exactly would he fit in. It's unfortunate, but I think probably the probability is he's likely just going to be sitting for the rest of the year and not. I don't see him going and playing in challengers. And it's such a huge loss, man. I mean, Bance said it, like, the guy's a winner. Like, as much as the series may not have reflected a great KD or whatever else that, the community wants to go at, like, the guy knows how to win. And the thing is, it's not just he knows how to win. He knows how to win with youthful talent. Like, the teams on E United in Dallas, like, my God, like, if he were to have found a way to go 3 for 3 with all brand new players, that would have been the most unreal thing that you've ever seen in esports, not just in COD, but like in esports. So Clay's Clay, man. He's obviously high up in the conversation for the greatest of all time for good reason. But the unfortunate thing about the situation right now is the game doesn't fit that team's play style. You heard Bance say it. I think everyone kind of knows that. And if New York needs to find a way to start being more significant in the CDL, you have to make the tough choice. And I think that's going to result in Clay kind of probably not playing for the rest of the year, which is really, really tough to say. Like, I feel sour on my tongue just saying that out loud. It's tough.
And something that I want to say too, he said this on stream, so I don't mind saying it. He literally stated yesterday, he was like, I would take $100,000 pay cut to be able to play in the league, which is kind of nuts. Like, I mean, you sit there and like, he's tweeted out like, I want to play really bad. Like, he's still very motivated, wants to compete. And obviously there hasn't been an official announcement on all of this yet, but it's just like, I don't know. I respect the dude. I came up with him in Black Ops 2. I think he's a very good player. I think he got put in a rough spot. Obviously, like, it was going to be Krim or Clay. We've talked about it a lot. Like, it was bound to happen. One of them was going to get put in a really bad spot. So I don't know. I'm interested to see kind of what plays out for this New York roster. If it's like a 100 Thieves thing from last year where they benched Slasher, then they ended up putting him back in the lineup. Like, do we see him kind of just hang out here if they don't find success and maybe get him back in? I don't know. Only time will tell, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how it plays out for sure for this team.
Yep. It's tough, man.
Yep, it is. It hurts saying, man. It actually hurts to say it.
Yeah, it really does.
If you want to take like one more, we can kind of wrap it up. I
didn't really have any other ones that I saw. Questions about like who are the top challengers players that could potentially find their way into the CDL or Paris, and I think we kind of, it's tough, man. It's tough to make a call on one particular player because we're seeing that occur right now with a team like Paris. Like, you can't just pick up one player and immediately expect results. We've seen that over the course, really, since challengers has been a thing. Like, you go back to Modern Warfare, didn't work out for Seattle with Pander and Proto, didn't work out for LAG picking up Spart. Like, it's just, you don't just pick up somebody and instantly get better. I think, and I was kind of thinking about this off the top of my head, but you look at what Toronto did, what London has done. You're not just picking up great challengers players. You're picking up great challengers players that have experience with one another.
Yep.
And yeah, you can obviously talk about the fact that Paul and Jimbo have played together in the past, but that's not the same as talking about the Singularity team from Modern Warfare that came to North America and wiped the floor with North American challengers. And also, by the way, that was most of what that Black Ops 4 champs team was. Same situation when you're talking about Afro, Gizmo, and Nasty, all of them having played together in some fashion throughout the Modern Warfare and Cold War years in Challengers, and they have that three-man chemistry kind of already built. Like, when you start to put together players that have success with one another with a lot of experience, not just a couple of stages, a couple of teams, you start to see how the formula really kind of gives you the ability to use challengers players in a way that kind of helps promote also a system for the team. So it's hard to pick one particular player, I would say, right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's a big argument that kind of leads me back to stating that all these challengers players and people should be streaming their games so we can kind of see what they're all about on a more in-depth level than obviously just like the outside looking in kind of from the Codcaster POV. I'd love to see what these players bring to the table as far as like communication and how they've developed, whether it's older guys who have been in the scene like Havoc. Obviously, he's been dominating in challengers. I'd love to see him kind of streaming his point of view in these elite matches and through the cups and stuff like that. And kind of, because I think if I had to guess that I've kind of stated it before, that the league kind of seems to be like, it's like a stigma league in a way, right? Like if you go in, you compete in the league, you play or you perform poorly, it's like that's what people remember you as and that's what people think.
Sure. Right.
And that's what these coaches and people have stuff to base off. But like for his sake, like he's only played on Florida. He doesn't have a lot of like experience with playing with other players or different individuals. He's really only played with like Skies and Awakening. And he's kind of kept his circle a lot smaller. So for some of these guys, like in these new teams, they're like, well, should we take like they don't maybe know a lot about him, or they just have like this stigma or thought from his previous experience playing in the league and whatnot. So I definitely think it's important, like we've talked about, for players to kind of be putting all the content out there that they can and streaming and whatnot, so players and coaches can get a better grasp of what these guys are about. But
I'm going to table this point, but it's a good one that we talked about a little bit with Salvation's leading the best of 3 guys. Talking about, like, if you are an upstarting Challengers players and Paris or New York comes knocking at your door to pick you up as an individual, especially for like the Paris situation where you don't have the ability to be in a facility, you don't have the organizational support to succeed. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I'm going to throw this out there. We're not going to answer it now, but if you're somebody like Jimbo, who now all of a sudden is looking at a do or die week, if he underperforms this week and he gets dropped, he's likely done. Like, his CDL career is likely done. Like, the ability for him to get back into the league is going to be so difficult. If you've come through and you put together 2 very poor weeks in the CDL, he's probably dead career-wise for the CDL, unless he really pops off again in the Challenger scene at some way down the road. So the rhetorical question that I'll throw out that maybe we can answer tomorrow is, if you're somebody like Jimbo, was it maybe a better idea to deny playing in the CDL for a team like Paris?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you bring up a really good point. I mean, it's just crazy to see. Like, we've seen it time and time again, and I think a really good example of this is like Spart and I think Pander. I think those are 2 really good examples that came into the league. They underperformed, and since they've underperformed, it doesn't matter what they've done in Challengers. There's a stigma around their name, and it doesn't care if it's title to title. They continue to dominate or play well or perform. It's like players remember and coaches remember that specific player coming into the league and not playing at the top of their game. And it's like, unfortunately, that's the way it is. I wish it wasn't, but it's like, again, that's like the only thing you can really base it off of. And people will argue that, like, you're playing lesser people in Challengers, and we've seen these guys play in the big leagues before. They didn't play well, they didn't perform, and they're not going to get another opportunity. I see people saying Fire too in the chat, like, yeah, he's another good example too, who came into the league. He had a long opportunity in Cold War to kind of show what he could do, and he had series. It's not like he was always getting smoked. He had some good series here and there, but like overall, people thought he was underperforming, and now he's in the Challenger spot. And it's like, it's just how it is, man. Until we see the league expand and more spots open up and more room for players to kind of get a chance and compete, that's kind of the way it's gonna be, unfortunately. So I know a lot of you guys have always been on like players and like, why aren't they in the league, or these guys deserve to be in the league, and that is literally the honest truth. It's literally, it's a stigma league, and that's kind of how like these guys and players and coaches and stuff like that have to base it off of until they're kind of proven otherwise, and someone gets another opportunity to prove what they can do.
Yeah,
I think that's like another, that's kind of all I got too. Last thing was gonna say was like, I think Royalty's like another good kind of I don't think he was even given a fair shot in the league again, but like he's someone that was in like the pro in the CWL, not the CDL, for years at the top, like doing well, doing his thing. Went into Challengers for like 2 years, has been kind of grinded forever. Gets on New York, doesn't perform to the best of abilities. They don't see the results, on his side individually or as a team, but then he kind of gets thrown right back to the pit as far as Challengers goes. And it's like, now that's what people are going to unfortunately remember it as. So I don't know. It stinks. Hopefully it'll change over time. That's for sure. But
and I think things like the Pro-Am help, by the way.
Yes.
For what it's worth.
Yep. 100%. I think that's kind of what we hinted on too. It's like, it's just so important for that to be a thing. But that's kind of all I got. I think we answered a lot of chat questions, unless you kind of got anything to answer, but I'll kind of wrap things up here. If you guys did enjoy the podcast today, whether you guys are watching it live on Twitch, we appreciate you guys. Make sure to please follow the channel, like I said. If you guys are watching it over on YouTube, please drop a subscription on there and check us out. We kind of do all of these podcasts 2 hours before the CDL games go live every single day. So on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're live through the weekend. We'll be live tomorrow again at 12 o'clock if you guys were enjoying the podcast. And then please do me a favor. If you guys have no idea who Alan is or Hold Shift, a great guy in the community. He's an amazing guy. Go show him some love, please. Mods, if we could put his Twitter in the chat. Follow him. Stay up to date with him. He's always grinding stuff, whether it's Challengers and casting or it's staying involved with the CDL. You name it. He's always involved. He's a great guy. So go show him some love. We appreciate you guys. We're going to kind of transition and wrap this thing up. I think I kind of hit everything there. We'll be live tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll catch you guys in tomorrow's pre-show for another episode of First Blood. Peace.